Politics is downstream of culture. Remember when Andrew Breitbart told us that? Time and time and time again, God rest his soul, Andrew Breitbart would say, politics is downstream of culture. What does that mean? Well, let me tell you what it means. The things your eyes see and your ears hear, the mind will believe. It's true. And we don't like to think about ourselves in that way, right? We don't like to think about that because what's it make us feel? Kind of sounds weak. Well, you're not going to show me something and change my mind. No, I'm not going to listen to that. I won't change my mind. No, you will. The truth is, what you consume, you will become. It doesn't just apply to food. What you consume, you will become. There is a reason the Soviets, long time ago, when they were sending spies over here, back before the Soviet Union fell and all that, when they were sending spies and agents over here, there's a reason they were so interested in Hollywood. You picture a Soviet agent, what do you picture? No, he's sneaking into the CIA at night to bug the director's office. They didn't have to sneak into the CIA at night to bug the director's office. If you want to destroy America, the communists knew Hollywood's the best place to go. Why? Because your guard's not up when you're watching these things. And when you watch movies, when you watch sitcoms, you are learning values. You're learning the things your culture values. You're learning it all the time. All the time. You just don't know it. I've used this example before, and it's 100% true. When I was a child, we used to have family come over to the house. A bunch of extended family, cousins and whatnot. And once we were all done playing outside, run around, hide and seek, all these other things, once it got dark, they'd bring us all in, and all the kids would go down to the basement, and we'd watch Friday nights. I believe it was ABC, I think was the channel. It was Thank God It's Friday, TGIF Fridays on ABC. And you know what we'd watch? We'd watch Full House and Family Matters. Full House was a show where the three dads were buddies, and they were trying to raise the two girls, and it was always this is right and this is wrong. And Family Matters was the show of, husband, wife. I think they had 3 kids. He was a cop, and every show was what? Of course, there's funny things throughout, but it's this is right and this is wrong. That was then. You and I have to wake up to the fact you can't put your kids in front of ABC on Friday nights anymore. You can't put your kids in front of Nickelodeon anymore. Why? They're not teaching right from wrong, not the way you understand it. These people now, they're trying to pour rotted out filth into the minds of you and your children. You think you're safe now with things like Disney? I mean, you remember what Disney was when we were kids, right? It's Mickey Mouse, Lion King. That's Disney, right? Right and wrong. You know what Disney is now? Disney fired Gina Carano for nothing. Disney, they took the Marvel character, Loki, and this is a bigger deal than you think, and they chose to make him gender fluid. Now, let me pause for a brief moment on the Loki thing and why I say that's a big deal. I can't speak for girls, but I know boys, young boys, they love superheroes. I mean, who didn't want to be Spider-Man or Superman or the Incredible Hulk or something? And these new Avenger movies are so popular, and they shatter all these records. Why? Because boys want to go watch movies about superheroes. And that's good. You should want to know about superheroes. And superheroes teach you right and wrong and good and bad. And so when they take a very popular one and they make him gender fluid, you may roll your eyes for a moment and forget about it. They're being very, very purposeful with what they're trying to pour into your mind and the mind of your children. It goes way beyond that. They brought back the Proud Family show with gay dads, of course. Remember, everything I'm reading you right here, this is aimed at your children. Aimed at your children. What did they pull? Well, they pulled things like Peter Pan, Dumbo, and the Aristocrats, warning about stereotypes. And it's not just Disney. You know the show Rugrats? I'm sure you saw it. Even if you've never seen it, you could picture an image of the show Rugrats. Yeah, one of their characters, Betty, had to announce that she's a lesbian now. Why? Why would that? What? Why? Where does that come from? Well, the communists have always understood something that we on the right have failed to acknowledge and failed to embrace. What your eyes see and your ears hear, the mind believes. And remember, we've talked about this a bunch on the show. When it comes to communists, they don't look at your kids the way you look at other people's kids. Because you're a normal human being, you look at other people's kids and you say to yourself, okay, not my business, whatever. I mean, what do you do when your kid encounters another rude kid? Well, son, just ignore him. That's just how he's raised, not our business. Communists don't look at kids like that. Communists look at your kids and they say to themselves, they should be ours. How do we take them away? How do we steal them away so we can teach them our values? Communists have always been this way, from Lenin on down. Mao, all of them. They all look at kids and know that's not a precious child. That's not a, God-breathed precious child. What that is, that's the future. If I can manipulate them, I can manipulate the future. That's why they're watching things like this and Blue's Clues.
Hey, Blue, look at all these families. Hi, families. It's time for a pride parade. Families marching one by one, hurrah, hurrah. Families marching one by one, hurrah, hurrah. This family has two mommies. They love each other so proudly, and they all go marching in the big parade.
It's bad enough if it's just on TV. That is specifically aimed at children. And understand this. When they sit down to write that episode, they know kids are going to be watching it. But this is the part that's going to floor you, because this is the mentality you and I can't relate to, but we have to understand this is how these people think. Because it's not a political ideology to them, because it's a religion of domination, you have to accept they approach this as if it's their God. Meaning when they sit down, they got a blank piece of paper, and they sit down, let's write an episode of Blue's Clues here. It would never occur to them not to put this stuff in there. It would never even occur to them. They can't set it aside any more than you can set aside your God. That's how committed they are. And they go after kids repeatedly. And they go after, look, I'm making this mainly about kids. The truth is they go after you repeatedly too. It's not only kids who are pliable. You and I are too. The stuff we consume, it affects us. You don't like to think of yourself that way, neither do I. I'm hard as nails. Nothing affects me. No. The music I listen to for 45 minutes on the way to work affects me, affects my feelings, affects my mood. The things I watch with my eyes when I get home, if I put my feet up, turn something on, it affects me. It affects my mood. But back to the kids thing. You remember that rapper Lil Nas X with that, that song, what was that song, Old Town Road? And he went around to all these schools and he's out there performing Old Town Road and he's doing stuff for the kids and kids programs and kids this and kids that. And I saw him on stage at a school and all the kids are dancing for the kids. What was Lil Nas X's next thing? Don't worry, we're going to edit this for you. You don't have to turn away. Well, he was giving a lap dance to Satan. I'm not making that up. They don't do this stuff on accident. It would never occur to them not to do it. Your kids are not precious beings, precious innocent souls who should be guided and guarded and protected to them. Your kids are on the dinner menu. Your kids are simply resources to be used and consumed. That's how they look at children. You and I have to accept this, or we're never going to take over. We're never going to take this culture back. When you have a new movie coming out, this new Fast and the Furious 1000 or whatever it is, and John Cena, one of the biggest stars in the country, makes the horrible mistake of saying Taiwan and then gives this apology in Mandarin, that should tell you all you need to know.
我爱更尊重中国更中国人，我很抱歉对我的错误， 对不起，对不起，我很抱歉，你必须了解，我很爱、很尊重中国跟中国人，不好意思，再见。
Don't make the mistake we've made 1,000 times. And look, you're not alone. I've made this mistake too. You see some video clip of an award show and some hot little pop star gets up there and I love abortion. And you roll your eyes and you say to yourself, no one cares what she thinks. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Go look at your Instagram follower count and look at hers. Yes, they do. People care what Hollywood actors and actresses say and do. They care what's in the movies. Even if they don't think they care, they care. This stuff does matter a lot. And we are never going to take this country back if we can't take back our entertainment system. You're going to enjoy this Planet Wokeism special tonight as we go over the things your eyes are seeing and the things your ears are hearing. We have some great guests. We'll be back. Well, this is a special treat for me because I used to watch this guy's shows, mainly Hercules, when I was a kid. It was one of my favorites. My mom would actually let me watch it. She didn't let me watch much on TV. Joining me now is actor Kevin Sorbo, one of the good ones out there. Kevin, I just have to get this out right off the bat. I understand it's immature, but be honest. We've had your lovely wife on a couple times. Do you ever insist that she refer to you as Hercules just to get a rise out of her?
No, I tell her she has to refer to me as Her Majesty. That's really about it. So.
Okay.
You had to make the reference that you watched me as a kid because it just reconfirms the fact I'm getting older. It's weird now when I do these autograph shows because I shot Hercules for 7 years while I was in my 30s. And now, of course, the show finished 20 years ago. So now I'm meeting parents that were like 14 years old and the show was on the air and now they got their own kids. So it's just like, yeah, the years do slip by awfully fast, don't they? But, you know, I've shot a lot of things since then. I got 3 movies out this summer, just so you know.
Well, they do slip by, I know, because I just wrestled with my sons in the living room the other day. I haven't been able to walk right for 3 days because apparently I'm not 20 years old anymore. I'm getting a little gray. But anyway, moving on. I want to play you this clip from Sonny Hostin of The View, who I'm not a big fan of anyway, but I thought it was so revealing of what the entertainment industry has become, sadly.
Sure.
I don't agree with this term cancel culture. I think this is about consequences, consequence culture. And, you know, there are consequences, I think, to things that he said. And this is just sort of not the first time that he has made his opinion known. I mean, he at one point, I think, called Rachel Lindsay angry when she says, in fact, she was just sort of sticking up for herself, sort of leaning into that angry black woman trope. They're just needs a lot of work to be done when it comes in this country to race relations and learning the true history of this country. And Chris Harrison is one person that needs to do this work. The other thing that I want to say is, you know, when it comes to this franchise, the host is someone that needs to make everyone feel very comfortable. The couples feel comfortable. The contestants feel comfortable. And I don't know that he is, at this point, the right person to do that.
Kevin, doesn't Hollywood realize this woke culture garbage is its own suicide? If for no other reason than it's boring. Things are so boring now because of all this garbage.
Well, it's showing up in their award shows. Nobody watches the Oscars or the Emmys or the, you know, Golden Globes anymore. They just had their lowest ratings ever in the last year's Oscar. I think it was 9 million. They used to get 50 million and 1 billion people around the world. People are tired of it. People look at it. Comedians don't even want to go out and do colleges anymore because they're afraid of, or get attacked for offending people. But that's what comics do. I mean, could Don Rickles have a career in today's world? I mean, everything is, you know, it never used to be this bad until now. It was bad back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and before. I get it. I know that stuff. We know the history there. I look at it now, and it's like it's a purposeful thing, and it started with President Obama, and it just has been kicking off since then. I've never seen such a racial divide in my lifetime. I know from, you know, my parents and before that, from the 50s and 60s, certainly, they were talking about it. But The world we're living in now is just crazy. Everybody's looking to be offended. Everybody's looking to be angry. Everybody's looking to try to create a bigger divide between the races and the cultures and the religions. And it's just like, to the point is just going, enough already. When are we going to say, just stop this ridiculousness?
You're right about Obama, 100% right about Obama,
Sure.
but I haven't been able to wrap my mind around why. I understand he was a president and president's influential and whatnot, and he embraced all that, but it was like he got elected and just somebody snapped the light bulb and the country lost its mind. Why? What did he usher in?
Well, I still remember before he got elected, they said, you know, we're going to fundamentally transform America. And I thought of going, okay, what is that supposed to mean? If somebody was about to get married and their spouse said to them just before they walked down the aisle, oh, by the way, honey, once we're married, I'm going to fundamentally transform you. You're going to see a lot of runaway brides and runaway grooms, I'll tell you right now, because it's like, what do you mean? I mean, this country was, number one, was founded on individuals. It wasn't founded on big government. And our government now just keeps getting bigger and bigger. They want total control of our lives from cradle to grave. They know what's right for the masses. They live like capitalists. Let's face it, they do. They got big houses, big cars. They get, I mean, you know, they get to travel around the world and do all these things. But they know what's right for you and what's right for me. And that's pretty much harking about what happened during Russians' reign during the Cold War. Because I've been to the Eastern European countries, and I'll tell you one thing, all the money is in the political buildings. It wasn't left for the people. The people were left to scrounge around and wait in 3-hour bread lines. And look what we're doing now. I mean, look at the COVID fear factor. Fear is an amazing weapon, and government doesn't want to waste a good crisis now, do they? And before you knew it, we saw people fighting over toilet paper, for crying out loud. I mean, it's just crazy what we're doing to people, and it's crazy what people are letting the government allow to do to them. We need to remember, and we don't teach civics in school anymore, we need to remember that it's we the people, and the government doesn't want you to know that. The education system doesn't want you to know that this government is supposed to be run by the people, not by these bozos that we put in office. And we need to get the term limits, and that we the people need to make sure nobody gets more than 6 to 8 years in office anymore in any level of any government.
That's so outstanding. All right, I do want to ask you this. Why are you so outspoken? And the reason I ask is this. It's easy for me, because I get paid to talk about this stuff, and that's what I feel anyway. It's easy for me to get up here and rant about our idiotic COVID lockdowns like you just did. It's not easy for you. Every time you open your mouth and say these things, I have no doubt in some way you're losing money because your field doesn't welcome that, yet you do it anyway. Why?
Well, because it's the truth. I mean, eventually we got to tell the truth. And they fear the truth. The left fears the truth. They don't like the light. They want to live in the darkness. The light, when you expose who they are, everything they say. You look at Antifa. They say they're against fascism. They are the fascists. But they call themselves Antifa. It's all about projection to put it back out on you and me, that we're the bad guys out here. And people get, you know, the school systems from kindergarten to universities now are indoctrinating our kids, and they're being raised to hate America. You know what? Nobody's taking boats from Key West to Cuba. There's a reason for that. No Americans are rushing across the border into Mexico. It's the other way around. Nobody's moving down to Venezuela. I just had an Uber driver yesterday from Venezuela coming back from the airport, and he told me how horrible it is down there. And that country at one time was the most powerful country in the Southern Hemisphere. Look what happened. Ronald Reagan said it best. He said, we are no further than one generation away from losing all our freedoms. And look what we're doing to the country right now. People are just ignorant. They're uneducated. They have no idea what they're talking about. And they have no idea what they want to live in. They need to go live in Cuba, North Korea, Venezuela. Have all these socialists that hate America go live in those countries for a year. They'll be running back to this country saying, I'm sorry, trust me. And you're right. I say anything on Twitter. I get attacked by people saying, I hope you die. I hope your daughter gets raped. I mean, they say stuff like this. How come they get to stay up on Twitter? Meanwhile, Facebook took me down about 2 months ago, because I was posting the truth about what other doctors were saying about wearing masks. I was posting the truth about what other people were saying about voter fraud, and yet I'm the one who gets taken down. Everything's upside down right now.
It certainly is. I brought up earlier when we first started this, things I used to watch when I was a kid. And one of the things I was allowed to watch when I was a kid was Nickelodeon. I mean, it was basic cartoons, right and wrong, heroes, things like that. It was normal things. Well, I'm going to play this for you. I'm sure you've seen it. This is what's on Nickelodeon now.
Baby blue, pink and white represent transgender people, because every letter in LGBTQ plus is equal. And black and brown represent the queer and trans people of color. Doesn't it just fill you with pride, showing who you are on the inside? Wave that pride flag
know?
What happened? How is this happening so fast?
Here's the thing. I've been in Hollywood 35 years. I work with gay people all the time. I honestly I get along with them fine. I don't care what people do in their personal lives. I really don't. It doesn't offend me, doesn't offend my lifestyle. What I do behind closed doors, is my business too. So it's weird to me that we have to sit there and force this down people's throats over and over again. I think that's what helps create some of this resentment out there from people in religious groups, people who are straight. I think people get to a point, they get a little bit tired of being force-fed this over and over again. It's a small percentage of the population that's transgender. Fine, put them in movies, put them on TV shows or something like that. But the fact that we're doing it more than the percentage of what they represent, again, is a little bit weird to me. It's like in the gay world too. I know people who are gay. I know people who are trans. I know Caitlyn Jenner. So it's like I've golfed with him many times. I knew her as him for many, many years. I've known 25 years. I knew him as Bruce Jenner. What people want to do in their personal lives is I don't care. What I get tired of is this constant sort of reinforcing saying that because I'm straight, I'm a bad person. I'm the bad guy here. I'm not saying they're bad people at all, and I'm not trashing them at all. Yet just because of me being a straight male, that makes me, number one, a homophobe, makes me, number two, a racist, it's just automatic. I mean, it's just to the point now you just kind of shake your head and go, what is wrong with our country? What is wrong with our world that we just can't, it's corny, but I'll take, Rodney King saying, why can't we just get along? So it's weird to me that what we're doing out there to people right now, we're doing this country with all these attacks and all this anger and hate. And, you look at what's going on in terms of people even wanting to get jobs in America right now. Our government is paying people more money than to not do anything. We just keep printing money. I mean, look at the inflation rate that's going to be hitting us down the road here. I just look at what's going on with that more than anything. A friend of mine just went to Hawaii recently. He said the hotel was 75% understaffed. Nobody wants to, make the beds anymore because the government in Hawaii is paying, I heard, $65,000 to not come to work. Well, you get a family of adults living in one house, 65 times 5, they're doing okay.
They're doing okay. Kevin Sorbo, thank you so much, sir. I appreciate you. Big fan.
My pleasure. 3 movies coming out. Go to kevinsorbo.net.
kevinsorbo.net. All right, we'll be back. Remember what we've talked about throughout this show. Don't make that mistake of seeing the Hollywood actor say something stupid or the new movie studio push something idiotic and saying to yourself, nobody cares what those guys think. Yes, they do. Entertainment, the entertainment in a culture is critically important to deciding the direction of the culture. It's part of the reason I'm such a big fan of our next guest. His name is David Ng. He is the Breitbart Hollywood and technology guy. David, major Hollywood studios push gun control initiative funded by Mike Bloomberg. Now, I think I know the answer, but how is Bloomberg and Hollywood connected? What happened here?
Right. So this weekend, an organization that Mike Bloomberg funds called Everytown pushed this kind of initiative where everyone would wear orange. And it was an initiative that was picked up not only by Hollywood celebrities, but also by major studios. And we're talking about the really big ones like Warner Media, Bad Robot, which is run by J.J. Abrams. It produced Alias and Lost and Mission Impossible movies. And a lot of TV stations as well, a lot of them owned by Viacom CBS. So you have the major players pushing this gun control initiative, but they don't say, of course, that it's funded by Bloomberg. They're just kind of pushing it out there, saying that, we need to end gun violence, we need to end, mass shootings. But they're not being forthright with the public. They're telling the public that this is a kind of a grassroots effort when, in fact, it is being funded by Mike Bloomberg, who has an agenda. And his agenda is for Joe Biden to act via executive order to basically enact gun restrictions, to basically infringe on people's Second Amendment rights. So that is kind of like the end game, but it's being masked by this kind of feel-good public promotion that people are pushing on their kids, people are pushing in schools. And Hollywood's effort is really, really kind of like the beachhead in this, in terms of its kind of getting it out there in the culture in a really major way.
David, all right, I have to ask because I think these details are important. What did the Hollywood studios see his effort and simply say, I like that because I'm a crazy communist and I love gun control? Did Bloomberg pay them to do it? Does Bloomberg partially own these studios? I'm just trying to understand how the spider web works.
That's a very good question. And I think what we can safely say is that a lot of these efforts kind of come through this kind of nexus in Hollywood that is a nexus between the talent agencies and the publicity firms that all act kind of in concert. A lot of the most powerful talent agencies in Hollywood have major connections to Democrats, to people like Mike Bloomberg, who are very powerful and who have powerful connections into the industry. And these talent agencies kind of put out their message to their clients, to their compatriots in the studios. And that's how it works. It's not something that is official in any way, but it kind of works through association. That's kind of like the way Hollywood and government and Washington kind of work hand in hand. And when I say government, of course, I mean the Democrats, because they're really, really, really plugged into Hollywood. So that's how it works. You know, you have someone powerful like Mike Bloomberg kind of leaning on powerful people like the talent agencies, like the publicity firms, who really pull the strings in Hollywood. And that's how they get political messages disseminated into the public like that.
David, how does it work as far as who leads this? Now, maybe you disagree with me, but I'm of the belief that you take a group of 100 people, you'll have 1 or 2 leaders in there. So is that the case in Hollywood? Is it the head of one of the production studios? Is it an actor like Leonardo DiCaprio? Everybody remembers he was all over HR1, as if that idiot even knows anything about HR1, but he was all over it. And then once he pushed it, a bunch of people started pushing it. Is it an actor who leads it? Are there 4 or 5 guys who David Ng could name who are really leading the charge with all this leftist garbage?
Yeah, I think in terms of a lot of the kind of political messaging that's coming out of Hollywood, you have very powerful people at the head of 2 talent agencies specifically, and they are UTA and CAA. And they kind of pull a lot of the political strings. A lot of these talent agencies have political divisions whose sole job is for political messaging and for serving the needs of political clients. And so the political arms of these agencies kind of work together with the celebrities, with the studio heads, to push these messages. Now, there are some studio executives who are kind of like their own man. So like J.J. Abrams, for example. He is someone who is very progressive. He runs his own studio, so he really, really only answers to himself. So in cases like that, I think it's really a kind of personal mission for him. But I think in the case of a lot of celebrities, it's the talent agencies who are really pushing on them to kind of get this message out. And the message of gun control is, of course, a very popular one in Hollywood. And something that, of course, is very hypocritical of them as well, because so many of these talent agencies, so many of these studios make a lot of money off of violent movies, off of movies with guns in them. So it's something that is very hypocritical on their part, but it's very beneficial to them as well, because for the celebrity, it's good PR, and that's what they're looking for, to get in with the people who pull the strings in Hollywood, but also with the public, and especially young people who are very susceptible to this kind of messaging.
That's what I was going to ask you. So all this else aside, I mean, let's say J.J. Abrams has a Soviet flag hanging in his living room, which he very well may. I don't know. But setting that aside, it all comes down to money at some point, right? I mean, even J.J. Abrams has a profit loss sheet, and if the money isn't there, then he's not going to be J.J. Abrams very much longer. Has Hollywood seen its bottom line hurt by going left? Because if they haven't, all this is for naught anyway.
It's a good question. I think they're starting to, because I think people are starting to push back on a lot of this really aggressive messaging. And I think the shift to streaming media, where people aren't really going to the movies as much as they used to, is really also hurting them as well. So I think, yes, the answer to the question is yes. I think it is hurting them. But I think in the long term, it's something that they are going to fight tooth and nail against, because they see their future not here in the United States so much, but overseas. Most blockbuster movies make most of their money overseas, specifically China. So I think they're less concerned about offending conservatives, offending people to the right of center, that they really don't care about them anymore. I think they've set their sights overseas on audiences in other countries as the source of their future revenue.
Okay, I'm glad you brought up China because I wanted to ask that. And again, I'm going to ask a general question you can't possibly answer, but whatever, I'm going to try anyway. Okay, let's say there is a blockbuster, a new Avengers movie, whatever. There's a blockbuster out that's going to make a fortune. Everyone knows it's going to make a fortune. What are the percentages as far as money they make in America versus Europe versus China? Are they making 90% of their money in China? What are the percentages?
That's a very, very good question, and it's very complex, but I'll boil it down for you. So for a movie like The Avengers, or for a Fast and Furious movie, for example, I would say, generally speaking, these kinds of movies make slightly more money in China than they do in the United States. So it might break down to about 30% of their total worldwide revenue might come from China versus 25% in the United States. Now, that's a very complex question because China withholds a lot of money from the studios. So what they are getting at the box office in China may not be what they get at the end of the day. So China plays really fast and loose with the rules, and they withhold a lot more money than what is being reported in the media. But what Hollywood thinks is that its future is in China, when the reality is much more complicated than that. The fact is that right now, as we're speaking, Hollywood needs China more than China needs Hollywood. If you look at the top 10 grossing movies in China right now, 8 out of 10 of them are domestic. These are homegrown movies, homegrown blockbusters. They tend to be, sci-fi movies, or they tend to be kind of like propagandistic, military, historical movies. These are the movies that are really grossing a lot of money in China, not the Avengers, not, the Transformer movies. So China has really, I think, weaned itself off of Hollywood, and it's Hollywood that needs China more at this moment. It's kind of like being in an abusive relationship, you could say.
David Ng, you always bring it, man. Thank you so much. Please come back soon.
Yeah, no problem.
How about that? We all got smarter. Now I'm going to take all that information, I'm going to repeat it all on my shows tomorrow and act like I came up with it. See? That's how this job is done. I'm kidding. We'll be back.
In America's North Korea, the Sunshine State, from time to time, we enjoy taking a look at what's going on. And tonight we are doing it again in a Governor DeSantis edition of This Week in Florida.
I am proud to be here today in the Everglades as we kick off registration for the 2021 Python Challenge. Participants who remove the most pythons and who capture the longest pythons will receive prizes.
Unfortunately, all the prizes are pythons, so it's a pythonathon going on there in Florida. We have a good show for you tonight. Michael Che.
Oh, comedy. Joining me now to talk about comedy and the state of entertainment in this country, comedian Josh Denny. Josh, I have no issue with people lampooning either side of the political aisle with comedy. I think it's great. I remember Matt Damon's Brett Kavanaugh skit on SNL. Everyone on the right hated it. I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was well done. My problem is that's not funny. I mean, you're the stand-up comedian here, but it's not funny anymore. It's just kind of hacky and lame. And Jimmy Kimmel used to be hilarious.
Yeah, I remember back on the Man Show. He was a pretty funny dude, and it's kind of a strange thing where there are a lot of comedians now who, because of the gigs they have, they've become completely indoctrinated to the propaganda, and so funny takes a back seat to getting the right corporate sponsored messaging out.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that because you do this for a living, right? And I realize that has to be a minefield at this point in time, but if you're Jimmy Kimmel, I don't care if he's a full-blown communist, but doesn't it make more money for himself and corporate America if it kind of goes both ways? Wouldn't that kind of capture everybody?
Well, the problem is that these companies aren't actually waiting to see what, the consumers are responding to. I mean, you look at the Gina Carano cancellation, it's like they pulled the trigger on that so fast. and then found out that it was actually the opposite of what their consumers wanted, and they lost over 1 million subscribers, in the windfall of that. So it's kind of weird. It's almost like they're throwing the financial responsibilities to the wayside. And I do believe, just from my experience in dealing with television executives and network executives, that these people think that they determine what the consumer wants for them. And so they have no respect for, what the average person really thinks or what the average person really believes. They think it's their job to tell them what the truth is. And that, like I said, that's the priority, and everything else takes a back seat to that.
Josh, is that a Hollywood is that a Hollywood thing or a show business thing, or is that just an arrogant college kid thing? That's what it sounds like. Every snot-nosed guy I've ever known that had a PhD or master's degree thought the same thing, that he was really the lord of the world and he would just educate you on what you should be thinking.
Yeah, it's a little bit of all three, right? I think, the world of college is sort of where it begins in terms of the liberal indoctrination. And then I think just about everybody who ends up on the business side in Hollywood, if you trace the lineage of a lot of these people, a lot of them are either Ivy League educated or their parents were Ivy League educated. They're very wealthy, and, they believe it's their job as the smarter, more financially successful part of society to steer the rest of, our culture. And so that's why you see a lot of these things where it's sort of like left hand not talking to the right hand. I mean, who is Hollywood speaking to anymore? You look at some of these shows, like there's a new show on Showtime from a YouTube personality called Z-Way, and the punchline of every joke is how horrible white people are. And it's sort of like, who is that for? Is that for the 5% of the 12% of African Americans that agree with that? I mean, they're not even playing to a market anymore. They're sort of just believing that if they build this narrative that the market will follow. And I think we're about to find out that it's not going to.
What kind of reception do you get? Because you're the one, I want people to understand this. I've always respected stand-up comedians just because it's hard to stand up in front of a crowd. Everyone's staring at you saying, make me laugh. And it's hard to then perform. And now you have to worry about PC culture while you do it. Are you making the right joke, but the funny joke? And your timing's got to be off. How is it for you now? Is it better? Is it worse? Are you finding a hungry audience just say something inappropriate or what?
Yeah, the funny thing is all of this sort of cancel culture and this PC sort of censoring culture, it all exists online. When you go into the real comedy clubs, those people are down for anything. They're starved for, material that's risque, that kind of rocks the boat a little bit, that, challenges some of things that are happening in the mainstream. So, I find that in the live comedy space, it's the best it's ever been in my, 15-year career in terms of the people that actually buy tickets and go to shows. They want comedy the way we all grew up loving it, which is no holds barred, and everybody's a potential target.
Yeah, who can forget guys like Don Rickles and the legend Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor wouldn't last for 5 seconds out there today. Actually, that reminds me. Play this clip of Chris Rock, please.
What happens is everybody gets safe.
Right.
And when everybody gets safe and nobody tries anything, things get boring.
Right. Absolutely.
So I see a lot of unfunny comedians. I see unfunny TV shows. I see unfunny award shows. I see unfunny movies because everybody's scared to make a move. And that's not a place to be. You got a place where people are scared to talk. That's not, especially in America, you're scared to talk.
Okay, well, what's weird is I've seen Chris Rock participate in that kind of stuff before. I get mixed messages from these people all the time of white people are the devil and Republicans suck and all this other. And then it's, whoa, why is everyone being so safe? Do these people even know what they believe?
Yeah, I think it kind of blows in the wind with whatever the popular sentiment is at the time. I think what you're seeing too is they serve a lot of different masters. And so sometimes I think these guys forget who they're talking to. Are you talking to Hollywood executives or are you talking to the public? It's very interesting. You see this stuff happen with Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle, depending on the audience. If you put them in front of a real comedy, free speech, liberty-centered audience, they're all about art and they're all about the freedom of expression. You put them on a talk show on The View where they have, sponsors to pander to and they're their Hollywood friends to pander to, their sentiments change almost overnight. So, and I think people are doing a good job of keeping score of that. I think they're starting to smell, who's really authentic and who's playing to their own wallet.
Yeah, that stuff always comes out in the end. How long do you think we're going to have to wait until there's a backlash when it comes to this stuff? What I mean by that is, you can be the corporate millionaire, snot-nosed jerk who thinks he knows it all now, but at some point in time, that profit loss sheet says you better start being interesting. Are we approaching that time?
Yeah, I think you're going to have to see. This is the unfortunate thing, is that COVID has financially bailed out a lot of people from their own bad decisions. So it's sort of like we saw a lot of bad business practices coming out of the housing crisis, the crash in 2008, 2009, and a lot of bad executives for companies were able to say, well, it's the economy. It's the economy. They're doing the same thing with COVID now. They're going, well, the shutdown is what's hurting our business. It's not our mismanagement or our complete lack of ability to be in touch with the consumer. And so I think it's going to be another year or two before people realize, oh, no, this isn't COVID. This is your horrible decision making that's completely out of touch with the everyday person. And people aren't watching because of competition or economy. They're not watching because you're not making anything good with interesting people anymore.
Josh, can you teach funny? Or is it one of those things either God gave it to you or he didn't?
Yeah, it can't be taught. You can teach people the mechanisms and everything, but it's like, listen, there are guys who can learn how to pitch and there are guys who are born to pitch, right? And at the end of the day, technical ability can only take somebody so far if they don't have the raw talent. And I think that's never more prevalent than in comedy. We've all seen somebody who's learned how to tell jokes who's not very funny. And we've seen people who are incredibly naturally funny, who don't know anything about the technical prowess of telling jokes, and they can carry an hour just riffing. And, it's like jazz, and there are people who are great musicians, but they could never play jazz. And comedy is really, to me, the last form of jazz we have in entertainment, aside from jazz itself, I guess.
What are you doing on Locals?
Locals is cool, man. I do a podcast there pretty regularly called The Wake Up Call, which is, topics like this. We talk about current events and culture and politics and, and really the kind of split we have in culture now where it's almost like the extremes of both sides are really, creating all kinds of problems for people that are pro-liberty, pro-freedom. There's also this kind of weird puritanical side of the right that's kind of creeping up. And, my concern with every pendulum is oftentimes when it swings back, we overcorrect in the first place. And so I think as a comedian, it's my responsibility to kind of keep everybody in the guardrails and make sure we don't get too crazy on both ends. But ultimately, it's amazing to me how many people are, kind of waking up to a more conservative sort of libertarian ideology of like, I want to be left alone and I want my freedoms. And, right now we live in a culture and are participating in a government that is doing everything they can to remind you that you have no freedoms.
Josh Denny, everybody. Thank you, my brother. I appreciate you.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right. We'll be back. You are not a block of granite. Your eyes, the things they consume, it matters. The things that go in your ears matter. And your kids too. I know this stinks. Look, as a parent, everybody knows this feeling. Don't listen to parents who act like super parents. Everybody knows the feeling. Long day at work, sat down, had dinner, homework done. And you just want to be done for the night, right? I want to go, look, this is my thing. I want to go watch a World War II documentary. Kids, go watch TV. We can't do that anymore. Those days are gone. They're after your kids. That television set, unless you're sitting there monitoring it, that television set is a portal for the communists. They want your kids and you consuming as much of their disgusting filth as humanly possible, and they're going to keep pouring it into your eyes and ears until we do something about it. Let us be more purposeful going forward. I'll see you next time.